Hello everyone, this is Datta Sai, and I'm a software engineer and I have a 10 plus years of experience into .NET full stack, and I have been going through this agentic AI in Python from the last 2 years, and I've worked on LangChain, LangGraph, Google ADK, and all these frameworks, agentic frameworks. And I do see like Microsoft has its own Microsoft Agent framework, which has capabilities even in .NET, so it also provides in .NET. So I just thought of going deep dive into this Microsoft Agent framework and have these videos created for you. So if you see the Microsoft Agent framework, right, it is actually like came from the semantic kernel and AutoGen. So these two are the earlier frameworks which Microsoft has been investing in, and these two frameworks have been evolved to Microsoft Agent framework now. And there is also a migration guide where people who have developed in these two frameworks, right, they can actually migrate to the Microsoft Agent framework. So yeah, so as part of this video series, right, I'll go through this Microsoft Agent framework, understand or show the samples that are provided in its GitHub repository, and the Microsoft Agent framework is almost showing all the capabilities that LangChain, LangGraph, or Google ATK provides. Like if you see a LangChain or LangGraph, right, it has its own deep agent framework, right? And even Microsoft Agent framework also has something called RunAsync, which is similar to a deep agent framework if you compare with LangChain. So let's get it started, and yeah, let's get it started. Yeah. So if you see for the first video, right, like we have this Microsoft Foundry is something where it's a marketplace where you can have the LLM created, and you use that LLM within this agent framework. And use with this Microsoft Agent framework, right, it is not just a Microsoft Foundry. You can also interact with Anthropic, OpenAI, and other LLM providers, and it has a flexibility for it. Yeah. So what is like you will with this first video, right, you will learn about Foundry, you will not learn about a basic Microsoft AI agent, and a sample, right, where you create two pieces of code, like just executing one single line and asking one question and streaming of the response from the LLM as well. There are two methods, run and stream. We'll go through that. And like Microsoft Foundry is something which we have to initially work on. Let's go right away to the Microsoft Foundry. Yeah. So this is actually the Microsoft new Foundry portal. There is a switching between new and old Foundry. Let me go to home, and we can actually see. So I already have created one project here, and you can actually create that project from the Azure portal, where you can go to Foundry and search with Foundry, and then create a Foundry project, so from which you will arrive to this particular page. If you see here, you have yeah, let's go search with Foundry. Yeah, so this is Microsoft Foundry, so you can actually create the project here. So actually it is actually redirecting to the this particular page. Let me go to here. Yeah, so I have two Foundries, like one is this is a new one, and this Azure OpenAI, right, this is a existing one where it is also a Foundry one, but it is with Azure. It was named as Azure. Let us go to the new portal like Foundry, and let us go to build. Yeah, so we actually need to create a deployment model here. So here this is a place where you have to create a deployment model. You can just click deploy a base model, and then select any open AI model or any model which is of less cost for the sake of these videos, right? I don't think we really need a greater or a better model. I think base nano or mini is enough. So yeah, so you can only select any like 5 nano or 5.4 nano. For the sake of this, right, I have already created a nano model, and this is called a deployment name. This is something which, yeah, we have the deployment name here. And now that we have created a deployment name, let us go to manage so that we can manage this. And we should make sure we should have the access, like we should have the user or owner creation here, so let us see how we can add a user or a new user, where we can actually have these details added to the environment variables, so that we can actually use the Azure client credentials, default Azure credentials. Let me go to the Azure portal. So I think you can even go from here. If you go here, you can go to manage this resource in Azure portal. Okay, so before that, let us go through the app registrations. So we should actually register one app, so that we can use its client ID and all the other information. So I have created one app here called DSK-Mac Foundry, so where it is just a normal process, and I have this client ID, and it also have a client secret and tenant ID. So these three details are actually required for us to add it into the environment variables whenever Azure is using its default credentials. So I've added my all the details in the in a shrc file. So if you see, I have added all the client IDs and secret and everything here. And if you see here, I have project ID and everything are created here. And I also added the other Foundry project endpoint and Foundry model here. So this is where, like, we have added the environment variables, and I'll explain in depth why we need these variables actually. Okay, so we have the app registration done now, and we need this user to be added to the project that we have created in the Foundry. So let us go to here, and I have clicked this manage this resource in Azure portal. So this is that particular place. So this is access control IAM. So here is where I have already added. If you see, this is a service principal which I have added here. So let me go to the that particular let me go to the particular role assignments here. Okay, so what you can do is you can select here. Okay, and then add role assignment, and then we have to actually so I actually tried with Azure AI developer, and it did not work. So for that reason, I have added as a Foundry owner, and then I can actually select next, and then I can actually add the members. So here I can actually select the DSK Mac Foundry app registration service, and then click select, and then click next, and then on review and assign, right, you can actually create. So for the informational purposes, right, I can just show you how I have added that here in the project, not in the resource level, but it should be under the project. Okay, so if you see here, I have already added the DSK Mac Foundry as a Foundry owner, and since I have added this, right, this particular DSK Mac Foundry has the client ID, tenant ID, and client secret, so which I have already added in my environment variables. And this DSK Mac Foundry can now access the Foundry project which I have created within the AI Foundry. Okay, so this is a reason why we need these particular credentials to be added, and why we need this particular data, right, like the client ID. So if you see, let me go to the piece of code. Okay, so if you remember, I have already added the Foundry project endpoint and Foundry model in my environment variables. I'm trying to grab them, and if you see here, right, if you see, I'm creating a project client, and then the endpoint. This endpoint is the Foundry project endpoint, and default Azure credential. So default Azure credential is something which actually uses your client ID, tenant ID, and client secret which you have added in the environment variables. And if you don't have those values, right, and you have already logged in with Azure CLI, so it uses your Azure CLI credentials to authenticate yourself to this Azure Foundry project. So it is default Azure credential. It is a easiest way to authenticate yourself to the Azure programmatically, and this is a reason why we have all these information. Okay, so if you see here, you are trying to create a project client object, and then you are creating an as AI agent. So based on this, right, and the deployment name you are passing, so it will create an agent here with this piece of code. And if you see, let us go through this, comment this piece of code for for time being. And so if you see here, right, we are using agent dot RunAsync, and then what is the largest city in France. So we are just passing that these instructions, and then name that agent, and then we are asking a question where it should actually respond back based on its trained data for that. So if you see here, right, when I am running this piece of code, it will respond. Yeah, the largest city in France is Paris. It is how it is respond. And we also have one more method called the RunStreamingAsync. Yeah, with the help of RunStreamingAsync, right, the response is retrieved in chunks, and like word by word. And then if you let us see here, if once we run this piece of code, right, if you see the response coming like line word by word. Okay, that is how we have this RunStreamingAsync method to stream the response or which we are getting from the LLM, and this can be actually written to the end user as well. So this is the basic first program which we have written. Like if you see, I have just walked you through the Foundry, how to set up and how to add these environment variables, why we need because of this default Azure credential. And to the next part of series of videos, right, I'll also explain about the all the other capabilities which we see with agent framework, like memory and persistent, agent harness, workflows, and all these information. And I'll be going to the agent framework.net samples GitHub repo. So this is a GitHub repo where I'll be going to picking some of the samples, and then I'll be just explaining the piece of code, and I'll also compare these things with what we see in LangChain or LangGraph and how different it is. Okay, and that's it from this video. Thanks for watching. Please, if you have any suggestions or anything else, please put down in the comments. Thank you.